Good afternoon to you. Earlier on today, apparently a woman rang the BBC and said she heard that there was a hurricane on the way. Well, if you're watching, don't worry, there isn't. But having...
Not a hurricane, but I tell you what, there's a bloody storm coming. It's called The Professionals, and it starts now.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is The Professionals. A big thank you to Michael Fish for opening the programme with that clip that never gets old about a hurricane not coming, and of course it didn't. I'm joking aside. We like to keep your feet on the ground. We do like to keep you calm. And just looking at the little comment there from Tuna. Some incoming quotes from The Professionals. Reality check. Give your heads a shake. Realism, etc. Well, you obviously watched the show, so you've tuned in for a reason. We will try and keep you calm. We have got our opinions, of course, and that's all we ever give on this platform. But where do we start? Well, I'll tell you where we'll start. We're going to start with Stuart Penman's idea. It's a good idea, I would hope. Stu's always got plenty of good ideas. So let's hear it, Stu. What is your idea for sponsorship?
Well, it's a link between marketing, signing and sponsors, 3 in 1. And I was asked today, well, someone mentioned it was today when I said it, is you should sell the idea to the club. I says, don't worry, they'll be watching. So, hello.
Hi.
Thanks for tuning in. So, very simple. There's a 21-year-old Brighton player called Yasin Ayari. He's a midfielder. He's been on loan to Coventry. He's been on loan to Blackburn. And his contract runs out in 2 years' time. So if we bid for him, we get him a decent price. I would think we'd probably pay no more than £15 million. We need cover. Sean Longstaff's gone. So that, for me, makes sense to do it that way. Now, Ayari was touted to be the one to come in and take over from Casado. And that's what they were grooming him to do. And he's found his feet in English first championship as it is, but the second division. And he scored a scorcher of a goal. I can't remember who he was against, but he also scored against Liverpool at the end of last season. So the sting in the tail is the guy's Swedish. Okay, so that means we would have 4 Swedish players: Isak, Kraft, Elanga, and Ayari. Now, if you want to spell out the first initials of their surnames, it spells out IKEA. Now, if we're looking for a sponsor, imagine IKEA, trading ground sponsor, £10 million a year. Not trading ground, front of shirts, trading kit sponsor, £10 million a year. But would also give them the rights to advertise our Swedish quartet. So you can imagine billboards all around the world. I lived in Tenerife. They've got a huge IKEA there. On the way to IKEA, they can have a big billboard with those 4 players on wearing Newcastle training kit with IKEA emblazoned on the front. And the catchphrase or the slogan would be Newcastle United, assembling Swedish perfection. Now, isn't it good? So that fits into what IKEA want. That fits into us adding to the squad for not much of a great price in a position where we need. And it also gives us, if my maths are right, £7 million a year surplus, which if you're using the PSR, gives us in excess of £30 million extra to spend. Just a simple idea. We're not going for a huge 60, 50, 60, 70 million pound a year sponsorship. But what about that? Well, I'm glad Steve doesn't agree with it. I think Tripe's Swedish, by the way. I think that's why he said that.
Yeah.
So that was just something that covered my head about, because I was thinking today that obviously everyone's thinking about Isak. And then I thought Elanga, and I thought I&E. And then Kraft's he's Swedish, so we've got IKE. So we just needed a Swede that's name began with A. So I furiously went on to the old Google thing and checked the Swedish squad, and there's Ayari there, already Premier League ready. So he can then be sitting there waiting to join his Swedish compatriots, and we can make more money, and that's what we're going for. That was my idea, and I just thought I'd start the show with a bit of positivity before the naysayers kick in.
Aye, interesting. Would we have meatballs on the menu at half time, St. Anthony? We could do, and those little hot dogs, of course. Yeah, I think it's a
Dime
great
bars.
idea. Dime bars, yeah, the little mini dime bars. With seats as well, we could have probably help increase the ground with having flat pack chairs in and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of things that we could do. But joking aside, Mitch, I mean, listen, that's just something Stu's come up with. 5 minutes sitting down in his house or out for his walk and come up with it. I guess for us, the big question is why hasn't Peter Silverson maybe come up with something, because he seems to be getting a few pelters. Surprisingly, called this months ago.
But I think one thing when you look at what Silverstone's done, and I think it's another example where something off the pitch is almost reflective of what's going on in and around the dressing room at the moment, and that he has actually brought quite a lot of new sponsors on board and upgraded a number of existing sponsors to a next level. But we seem to be missing the big ones, the huge ones, the ones that really genuinely make a difference. And what I keep hearing is that certainly without Champions League football, we're a difficult sell because we're bigger than certain teams, but we're not seen as in that able to bring in the sponsors. The sponsors want to jump on board without the Champions League football in place. So will that become easier this year? I don't know. I certainly know there's a lot of courting and wooing of sponsors going on, or potential sponsors. But getting that over the line seems to be something that's become quite difficult. Is it this sort of, while we're in this middle ground, or this sort of void between the also-rans and the perceived elite? Is it something we just have to sort of tough out until we break through further and it becomes consistent? But how do you do that without the ability to change things from a PSR perspective with additional sponsorships of the bigger kind? And that's very, very tough. We also don't know what other jobs Silverstone's having to juggle whilst we have this. I'll probably say more about this later on, but whilst we have this genuine power vacuum at the club above Eddie. And that seems to be complicating everything at the moment, for me.
Okay, interesting stuff. Lots of comments coming in. We will look now at yesterday's game. Newcastle United's first friendly. Newcastle, of course, travelling to Celtic. I was up there. 4-0 to Celtic. Let's point a few things out, first of all. This is Celtic's 5th pre-season run out. Newcastle's first. Newcastle's just done a full week's training in Austria, and we know what Eddie Howe's training's like. And from my perspective, I didn't expect to go up there and to see Newcastle United doing what they've done in the Premier League last season and in the Carabao Cup. I certainly didn't expect Newcastle to capitulate and lose by 4-0 either. I did expect a bit more fight and a little bit more effort in the game. I'm not a fan of friendlies, and I don't go to the Cellar Cup games. And some people might say, well, you're supposed to be a fan, you should go to the games. But honestly, I find friendlies so boring. And anyone who goes to a friendly expecting Premier League class football, or top class football, you're not going to see it. Friendlies literally are friendlies. They're there to blow the cobwebs out, no matter what level it is. Sunday leagues, Saturday afternoons, down at the Northern League games or Premier League. When you have a friendly, it's exactly that. It's a chance to bring on players, rotate players, and the 10,000 people, or many of the 10,000 people who went yesterday, should know that, because the hardened Newcastle United fans and supporters who go. There was a huge element there yesterday of people who I met, and big thank you to everybody who came up and said hello and shook my hand and, just wanted to talk Newcastle United and the various pubs that we went into. We got up there at 10 o'clock in the morning and we had a great day. And likewise, coming back on the train, great to see so many, people who I've known for years from away games, like Darren Curry and Terence Ross and, Barry Ingham. There were so many faces who, I see and have seen since I was a young lad in the 1980s who, have gone to these away games religiously. Now, there was a lot, though, of people there who will not get another chance to go to an away game this season, because Celtic gave us 10,000 tickets, because their fans were, of course, a lot of their fans decided they were going to boycott because they weren't getting the game for free. We ended up with more tickets. So there was a lot of people there who don't get a chance to go to away games. Now, those people, I can understand the disappointment. I can understand the disappointment that you didn't get a chance to even celebrate a goal. But that's what pre-season friendlies are all about. So I'm not being patronising. I'm not. I should really be preaching to the converted. You should all expect that. Can I take any positives out of the game yesterday? Yeah. I mean, it was a chance to blow the cobwebs out. Alanga, I thought, looked good. In touches, he's clearly settled in with his teammates. It was nice to see a few of the young ones get a run out. I'm praying that Murphy and Neve do manage to find their way into the first team this season and maybe break through and maybe help each other. Other than that, no, I couldn't really take any positives. It was almost like a flashback to those kind of dark days of Steve McLaren and Allardyce as far as the terraces were concerned, because people just weren't really bothered about the game. Most people were standing talking and chatting, and obviously the main topic was Alexander Isak missing. Why was he missing? And because none of us were really on our phones, because we're there to watch the match, we didn't really get the gist of what had happened with Isak until after the game. And of course, then when Eddie has his interview and puts it out there, we were all saying on the train back, this is going to be an absolute storm tomorrow. So yeah, that's where I come from. That's my feelings on it. And you know what? It's a friendly. It's not worth getting too upset about. My point, before I get the lads' views on the Alexander Isak situation, is, yeah, I am a bit more concerned, I would say, after reading and listening to what Eddie had to say after the match. But on the flip side of that, is it not such a great way of being a manager? You're looking after your player. He's clearly knows his player very well. He knows how his player is reacting to all of this interest from the press and them trying to say that he's going to go here, there and everywhere. We didn't just have the Liverpool situation, which developed over the course of last week with Ekatike, maybe he's coming to Newcastle and Liverpool wanting him, and then Isak, all of that it can be unsettling for a player. We then had, towards the tail end of the week, we had a link with Saudi Arabia and Al Hilal. So, it may get to the player, and maybe Eddie had made the decision not to play him because he's come back a little bit later than everybody else, and because of his injury record, and because we've let Callum Wilson go, he doesn't want to be that manager who follows in the footsteps of, was it Kenny Dalglish, where Newcastle United sold Les Ferdinand, and then Alan Shearer got injured at Everton at Goodison in a meaningless friendly, and left us with John Dahl Thomason up front at the start of the season. Imagine if Alexander Isak had played yesterday, and I wouldn't say it was a micey game, but people were putting the foot in. It was one of those games which could have happened. Would have been a situation where Alexander Isak gets injured and he's out for the rest of the season, or a big part of the season. It would have been a nightmare. So for me, then having to play Sula up front next season, because maybe we haven't brought a striker in, or we start with opening games and we don't get a striker until the 1st of September. you've got to think about these things. So it could be a master stroke from Eddie. We don't know. Alexander Isak, of course, won't comment on this. We don't expect him to. But it's not a reason for getting up a height and suddenly going onto social media and showing yourself up. I think it's just a case of sitting back and waiting until, we see what happens in the transfer window, which is what I said all of last week. I've waffled on. I don't often get a chance to say stuff, but Mitch, I'll give you your opportunity first to have your say about today's game.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, come to the friendly. God, I've been to so many bloody friendlies in my time and seen some right out tripe, to use the word of the day. And you kind of, you can't read too much in terms of the performance or the result. What you can say, it's good to shake the cobwebs off. It's, we know Pope has stuff like that in him. That's the reason he missed that cup final, is he has a moment like that in him. But I'd rather he gets it out of his system in a pre-season friendly than, on the opening day of the bloody Premiership season. There's a load of things that they get out of friendlies and what managers get out of friendlies and far beyond the performance and far beyond the result. So I think that's one thing to sort of stick aside. Yeah, we'll take some stick on social media, particularly from some jumpy Jack Celtic fans about it, but bloody hell, I think that's just goes with the territory, doesn't it, really? The situation with Isaac, I think what makes it, there's two things here that have sort of got me mulling things over. Firstly, Eddie Howe does not misspeak. I can't think of a time when Eddie Howe said something in a press conference or an interview which was wildly and badly misinterpreted. He doesn't. I think his choice of words yesterday were interesting. I personally think it's perhaps a message in terms of this distinct lack of leadership above him that seems to exist. Because the worry and the concern is, as well as that's at the club, how does that filter into the dressing room? And certainly a situation with Isaac, strong leadership for me would have had somebody senior at the club. Bear in mind, Darren Neils is still in position, as far as we know, or perhaps the chairman coming out publicly and saying, this player is not for sale. Boom. Stops it. Or it shuts a lot of the speculation down. That's what I would love to see from the club. And we haven't. And I think, and again, I keep going back to this, whilst there's the lack of that sort of level of communication and level of leadership, what broods in the silence is angst and fear and worry and concern. What he says is quite right. Alex Isaac will get nothing out of sitting in the stands watching that dross yesterday. Nothing. What's the point of bringing him along to do that? And there's plenty of other players, didn't play too for one reason or another. I just think the fact that Eddie commented on Isaac singularly and didn't say, oh, well, him and Joe Linton and Tino Livramento and Hall were all sent back together and talk about it collectively, it's a little different. And I genuinely don't think that's a mistake. The other thing that interests me is looking at the mood of some of the press corps. He's down this video that he put out after the game yesterday, and some of the others that I've seen. Yes, well, everybody. There's a reason why whenever I get a message from Mr. Penman, I put my earphones in.
I don't open the bloody things.
And the best one was once, he got us at work with one, And one of the girls at work stuck her head in my surgery and said, "Oh, was that message from Mr. Stewart?"
I get blamed for him.
Oh, jeez. Sorry. Yeah, the mood in the press corps. Have they picked on something that they can't really report on, but is an open secret somewhere? I don't know. But what I do know is we're lacking a distinct amount of leadership, and that the lack of appointments in certain key positions seems to be hurting us on all levels within the club at this moment right now, and is adding to the fear and upset, and is bringing out the negativity that so many people seem to be fueling on. And I know I've come across as critical of some of the fan base and some people of late. What I would say at this point is I do understand where those feelings come from. I totally understand it. And I understand why that mindset sort of comes in. Business experts, Paul, is fine, but it's not business people we need. It's football people.
I think we'll dig into that because Steve Hasty sent us a good message, didn't he, in our WhatsApp group. So let's Stu have his views on the Celtic game first, and then I'll read out. I've got a really good email from John Askew, and I'll also read out the message as well from Steve Hasty earlier on. Go on, Stu.
Well, as you know, I'm from Scottish descent, and getting beaten any game, whether it's a friendly or not, it's never nice, and especially to those. But to all those supposed fans twisting more than a mangled yo-yo yesterday after we got beaten a friendly. Now, you touched on it, Steve. Bruno said in his statement today, he'd only had 4 or 5 days of pre-season training. When I was watching it, I thought they were challenging, shall we say, gingerly. They were scared of getting hurt. They were scared of sprinting in case a hamstring went or something like that. They're just finding their feet. Yes, it was lackluster. And it looked like we'd only had a few days of pre-season training. It looked like it was our first game of the season. And it looked like it was Celtic's 5th game of the season. Oh, hang on. That's exactly what it was. But I think what happens is people have different levels of mental capacity. And with the media in overdrive this week, that's, to me, I think that's what's tipped a few over the edge. You know, but they've had 3 weeks more training. They are a Champions League side, but I tell you what, I'd love to draw them in the Champions League. If they qualify, I'd love to draw them in the Champions League. Then we'll see a different result. Because like Mitch, I've had a lot of Celtic fans from Dubai, strange enough, gloating. I mean, it's a friendly, guys. But it's a win. It is. But I tell you what we'll do. We'll have a bet. If you qualify and we draw you in the Champions League, I'll have a bet. Any level of money you want to have a bet to. No. Well, you don't want to. So it's a friendly. Of course, there's banter and it goes on. But imagine we'd won yesterday, and it's easy to be wise after the event. But had we won yesterday, it would have papered over the cracks. So it could be a blessing in disguise as far as I'm concerned, because it could have been, well, there's no need for new signings. With no need for additional sponsorships. We've got enough. We've clearly got money to spend. I know we're not getting the players, but we're bidding for them. And that's maybe something we can come on to later on in the show. Why aren't we getting them? What's stopping us? They are bidding for them. We might have to feel there's no need to do anything at all. And for me, a wake-up call like that will do us good. But the outcry of, like, I use the word more twisted in a mangled yo-yo, but does that mean you only support Newcastle if they're winning? Like, have you only supported Newcastle for the last couple of years or something? You know, I understand there's an overwhelming sense of frustration around the club. And I was privy to some information earlier, which I shared with Mitch. And I might actually touch on the Isak thing. Now, be careful how I word this, because I don't want to come across as speculation. But it's from the same source that told us Alanga was definitely signing, and he signed. And basically, when the players finished last season, they were joyous. They'd won a cup. They were in the Champions League. And they were told when they come back, there'll be additional signings to boost the squad, and they're going to have a real crack at it this season. And then they've come back, and when they come back, there was no signings. They eventually managed to get Elanga in. And again, you have to understand people are human. You've got to look from a player's point of view. The careers are short. For those who follow me on Twitter, I was having, I wouldn't even say an argument, I was having an exchange of words with Stephen Borson last night. And he was good enough to, I answered a reply to, he replied to someone else, and he was good enough to pick my reply to him. And we had a conversation or dialogue, shall we say, for about 30 minutes. But he's convinced that Isak wants to go. And I said, well, and I'll have to go back on the account, but there was one thing he said. I'll get my phone, I'll find it 1 second. And the way I looked at it was, if Isak wants to go, he'd be gone. And I think Eddie Howe was like that. He would just say, right, that's it. You don't want to be here, off you go. And he made that clear. Now, that could have been a sounding shot to him. We only want players in who are wanting to play for this club. But I'm trying to get, like, we're too, I think the idea is we're too quick to criticise. And we're so quick to forget how far we've come. And I don't want to come up with the old, look where we were before under Mike Ashley and everything else. But we seem to have conveniently forgot the Newcastle rule that was brought in to hamper our progress. And we're quick to forget it was our first pre-season friendly where people didn't want to risk getting injured. Now imagine, you mentioned it, Isak. Why? Imagine him in the stands yesterday. We wouldn't have seen any of the game. Those who were lucky enough not to be there, those who were having to pay 20 quid to watch it through the club, only would have just had cameras fixed on Isak all day. Weren't waiting for any reaction, any shake of the head, any nod, any time he was looking away, any time he was on his phone. It would have been a circus around him. So I can understand he's frustrated because he knows he's a talent. We know he's a talent. And we have to understand that people will want to sign the best players, and there's clubs higher up the pecking order than us that, of course, they want the best players to join them. And maybe now we're seeing the full effects of PSR coming into full swing. Someone mentioned in the comments there that I think it was someone called Lee that put it on. Aston Villa got beat up a second or third division German team yesterday in their first pre-season friendly. There's been no drama about that, but that's because they've had no one taking or trying to take their star players. But there's a minority. Steve, you were amongst 10,000 people there yesterday who, as you said just earlier, some of them will be the only away game they get to this season. But I guarantee you, if people want to throw the toys out the pram, as some are suggesting they will, I think there's plenty who would take the place. Now, unless I'm mistaken, and this is, again, we've all been brainwashed by the media, we've all come PSR, FFP experts. We support the team through thick and thin. And I was speaking to, or mentioned it to someone earlier today, Geordies are made of sterner stuff than that. And really, when things are like this against us, it's not a conspiracy. There's no need to be paranoid. It's just the way it is. But are we taking a knife into a gun and fight? Probably. But sometimes a knife will win. And we are capable of, and I know Mitch has said this on frequent occasions, when we stick together, we're a force that can't be beaten. And we proved that at Wembley. We proved that on the road to Wembley. No, I'm not trying to be all positive and make an excuse for what happened yesterday. It was a friendly game. But what would people rather we went hell for leather and won 3-1? I would, because I had a bet on it. But we won 3-1 and Tonali pulled a hamstring, or Gordon pulled a hamstring, or Elanga got injured, or Bruno twisted an ankle. You know, the guys were just getting through what they needed to get through to up the fitness. So for those who are complaining, I've got two words to say to you. And the second one begins with O. You ready for it? Leyton Orient. If you remember, we got beat 6-1, 6-0 off them. And then we went on to, I know it was a league below, but that galvanised the team. That was the wake-up call that team needed. And we went through it and we won. So it's like challenge accepted. Now we know Pope, he got heavily criticised for his mistake, and that's what it was. It was a mistake. But goalkeepers' mistakes are highlighted more than anywhere else on the pitch. No one mentions the missed chances. No one mentions the missed tackles or the misplaced passes. The goalkeeper made a mistake, but he made two class saves, I thought, during the course of the game. But that gets pushed aside. And again, it was a friendly. So there, Walsall beat Villa as well. Now, how many people have Aston Villa signed? None, because they've been hamstrung. So the real enemy isn't Eddie Howe. It isn't what's going on above Eddie Howe, which we will discuss in more depth if that's what people want. And we probably will have suggestions. We can't have solutions because we're not in charge, but we'll have suggestions on how to fix it or the ways to fix it. But had we had a normal week yesterday, or again, go back to the start of last week, the week just passed, we signed Ekitike. There would be none of this drama. A friendly defeat's a friendly defeat. But we didn't. And, you know, if my auntie had, should we say, wheels should be a bike, 10,000 people had a good day out yesterday. The players got a few extra minutes in their legs. And Eddie Howe, his biggest problem he had yesterday was he was too honest. And he didn't try and cover it up. He didn't get angry with the media like a Klopp would have, or he spit his dummy out like what sometimes Guardiola would, because sometimes Pep just gets the word asking questions to scare to offend him. But Eddie Howe, for me, he gave a brutally honest conference. You could see he was frustrated. He wanted extra players in. The players were expecting extra players in. But that opens another conversation, which I'm sure we'll come to. Why aren't we getting who we're getting? If people stop and think, it's quite obvious. We can go and sign loads of players and call ourselves Everton United instead of Newcastle United. We need to sign players who are going to benefit this team, who are going to improve this team. We're in a really, really, really small pool of players. And unfortunately for us, this is the knife to the gunfight. You've got teams who are a lot more money than us, a lot more disposable income, even if they can't, even if they shouldn't have it because of the way the rules are, because they're in debt or because they're getting loans. Our club borrowed money off HSBC. Why did they do that? If we passed PSR last year, we've had all the TV money in, we've had Adidas money in, we've had Kelly's money in, we've had Almiron's money in, we've had now Sean Longstaff's money in. We've got money to spend. They don't go and spend or bid £70 million for a player and not have money to spend. So we're up against it at the moment, and it's not Eddie Howe's fault. It's not the players' fault. But as I mentioned to someone earlier, we support the team. And trust me, PIF will fix it, because maybe what's happened in the last week has got their goat up a little bit. It has got them rattled that they're getting pushed around, and they won't like that. They won't like that. So the changes off the pitch is out of our hands. The changes on the pitch is in Eddie Howe's hands. The transfers have been frustrating, and I know I'm conscious of talking too much. I'll pass you back to Mitch so he can explain why we're bidding for players and not getting them. But I'm sure everyone can work it out anyway. We will improve, but I think we've just hit that word that Ben Jacobs can't say right. It's called impasse, but he calls it an impasse. That where we are stifled to grow the way we want to grow, and we have to accept it rather than cry about it and come back fighting again together. That's what Newcastle United should be doing. And getting beat up Celtic hurt me more than probably most Newcastle fans, but it was a friendly. If we get beat off them in the Champions League, which we won't, then don't worry about it. And I don't want my club to go and buy players who aren't good enough to represent us. And the fact that we're in the Champions League for the second time in 3 years, we've won a trophy. It's a perfect springboard to grow and to progress. But we're not allowed to. But we have to keep trying, or do we just give up? That's not the Geordie mentality. We don't just give up. But some people have to. Some people have already given up, although they don't want to complain. They don't want to understand. And it's very easy to complain. It's more difficult to understand. And then after that, it's more difficult to support. But as the song goes, we've all sung it. We'll support you evermore. So that was me getting onto yesterday and just dismissing it because that's what it was. The players didn't want to get injured. And we've got better days ahead. Far more better days ahead than worse days. Trust me on that.
Just putting it out there, please don't go to any fights with knives or guns. And on top of that, please do not attach your wheels to your grandmother. Mitch, what's your feelings about why players don't seem to want to come to Newcastle? I mean, some of these players may well have been genuine attempts to bring them in. Others might just be media speculation. But Stu's prompted the question, really. What's your feelings?
I don't think...
Is it the area? People are saying they don't like to move north.
I think that's bullshit these days.
Yeah.
That's genuinely bullshit. Look, bottom line, we're stifled by wage structure, 100%. Other teams can seemingly offer more flexibility on wages. Agents earn their money by getting the best deal possible for their players. You look at the situation with Trafford, that apparently has been a done deal for a long time, but that's held in limbo because while Man City make their mind up whether they want him back or not. See, for me, I would have walked away from all of that a long time ago. We had this hoo-ha with Gooey last season, that dragged on. The Ekitike thing, for all I would have been quite comfortable signing him, what it would appear that Liverpool are about to pay for him would be a concern for me in case he wasn't successful. You look at him, we went to PSG for 30. They sold him after a year for 15, and now he's going somewhere else for 75 plus. That's a big risk. Eddie used a phrase about picking from a small pool of players. Now, that's something that Eddie's been certainly criticised for by certain elements of the fan base about wanting very specific players, sort of Premier League ready, this and this. His criteria seem to be quite narrow. Is it time for somebody, but here's the thing, who, because there is nobody above him, and as far as we understand, he has more input than ever into the recruitment process, that maybe that field needs to be widened a little bit, and rather that we look at players thinking of what can we do ready-made. We need bodies in at the end of the day. Not only about being promised about bringing people in. Our squad's now depleted even further. We've only brought Alanga in. We've got more games to play, and we've got a number of competitions to fight on the different fronts at, and it'll hurt if we're not to a certain level of numbers. Our Champions League squad now, I think we can only need 21 in the list, the A-list squad, which is that's again potentially can hurt with. So, like many things at Newcastle United, there certainly seems to be a glacial pace of movement on occasion, and it frustrates everybody. It frustrates me too. I think, like I said before, when it comes to the sponsorships, again with players, we're in this curious middle ground. And you can persuade some players to get on board with an exciting project with the right fit and the right mindset and the right conversations. And you'd think we'd have more power to our elbow to say, and look, this is our first domestic trophy for X. Do you want to be part of this? Look at this. Look at the parade. Look at the way the fans have reacted. Look at this. Come and be part of this. And you'd think that would be such an easy sell from a playing perspective. But if we can't back that up with wages, if we can't, we're going to struggle with certain players. And if we are aiming for those narrow, elite type signings, if that's what they want, which is fantastic, by the way, that's the way we should be thinking. But yeah, I think that at the bottom line again comes back to PSR, comes back to not being able to really chuck the serious money at it that we need to, and so we're in this curious no man's land. And certainly again, while this goes on, and the longer this draws out, it's not going to reassure anybody. In fact, I think more people are going to get jumpy and upset and concerned.
Yep, you're nodding quite a lot there, Stu. You obviously agree with a lot of what Mitch says.
Yeah, well, I think I used 2 words earlier, overwhelming frustration, and it's justified. You know, it's not just us as supporters, but the players, I think the ownership. Why would Jamie Rubin fly to Austria last week? It wasn't just having a little trip to do the Sound of Music or anything, was he? He was going there because there was obviously something that needed to be tended to. So but the frustration is right. The way I say it, right, Steve, instead of blaming Eddie Howe, who I think, by the way, and yes, I've been made it quite clear, I'm a massive supporter of his. He's massively overachieved with what he's had, right? And if we take a step back, take a deep breath and think, PSR is now doing exactly what it was intended to do, what it was introduced to do. It's there to protect the favourite ones. It's also there to protect or allow a healthy existence for those who will nod along, like your Brightons, like your Bournemouths, like your Palaces. As long as they've got enough to keep in the top league and keep taking the money, they're all right with that. But the clubs with ambition, Newcastle, Forest, Villa, to a point even West Ham, they've been stifled. They're not allowed to spend money. But for those who are wanting players in, using West Ham as an example, look how they have spunked money over the last few years on transfer windows with a scattergun approach. And I genuinely believe we will get players in between now and then, but it's not ideal. We all wanted them in before the window started. Eddie Howe stated that after the Everton game, you know, and that's probably put more pressure on him. But I think at that time, he must have thought he was closer to securing some of those deals than what's actually materialised. But be angry. I can use the word guns again, Steve, something like that, but point your guns at the Premier League. Point your guns closer to home. Even for Peter Silverstone, because in that role he's got, it's as close to a free hit as you'll get in that role. With the owners that we've got, the contacts they've got, the people who want to be associated with them, you can't get much more than a free hit than that. And that's been my constant frustration throughout the last probably 2 years for anyone who's watched this. But now we see the journalists coming out with it. Maybe this channel is ahead of the curve. Maybe we do say things before they happen and we talk about them, we get shouted down, and then all of a sudden, no, you guys have got a point. But we're not here to say we're right. What we want is a winning team. And I think we can all see quite clearly, if we take out the people who have left the squad from the start of last season to what it is now, we've got less players than what we had. And that should be our worry. But then do we just bring players in? I've already given a suggestion. There's a lot of Brighton. Bring him in. There's someone that's, is it Dougie Luiz? That's Juventus. He's itching to come back to the Premier League. And he's Brazilian. He would fit in. But everyone wants to play a football manager. We should sign that player. I'm going to say a name now, right? And I know I'm going to get laughed at and I know I'm going to get mocked. But you know how I would take as a centre forward? Is a backup. That Hoyland at Man United, because I genuinely think he could become a very good player. And I think you've seen him, he went on a streak where I think he's scored 7 in a row, and he's a confidence player. But imagine playing in there when half the time you've got waterfalls in the background, you've got the fans booing all the time, and you've got egos in that dressing room that's beyond understanding. It's incomprehensible. Now, I'm not saying we should go and sign him, but I wouldn't be disappointed if we spent 40 million on him, because he is Premier League proven, and I think Eddie Howe would get a tune out of him. But sometimes we've got to be careful what we wish for, and at the same time be grateful for what we have. And again, the overwhelming frustration is it appears that we haven't advanced to where we should be, or where we could be after the way we finished last season, which we've all readily admitted was the best in our lifetimes. So the anticipation, excitement coming to the season was at probably the highest, but the alarm bells were there when Isak wasn't playing against Arsenal away, and then he got patched up and played against Everton at home. No goals yesterday, if you count that as a real game. And this is the worry. If he's not playing, can we score goals? If he's not fully fit, can we score goals? So I don't think they never ever want to get rid of him, but players will move on. But we need replacements, and we need someone to come in and say, I know there's a lot of people shouting out for Amanda, this, that, and the other, and whether that's out of hope rather than expectation, whether it's out of misty-eyed, wasn't those times nice? We're going to look back at this period in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, and think what a great time that was at Newcastle United. Champions League 2 times in 3 years. The problem is we haven't kicked on because we can't rival Chelsea with wages. We can't rival Man United with wages. We can't rival Liverpool with wages. These are huge, huge clubs. We're the biggest club in the Northeast by a long, long way. But as we've discussed previously, myself and Mitch live abroad, and we're a small bit of what their fans want, of who the nation supports. So we understand, yes, they should want to come to us. We should be first choice because that's for our affinity and our love for the club. But you don't understand the size of other clubs as well. And we're now, to improve our squad, that's finished, what, 4th, 7th, 5th? You're talking about a very, very small pool of players. And if we want them to improve, why wouldn't these other teams want them to improve? We've got no God-given right to get them, just as Liverpool have got no God-given right to get Isak. But that's how football works. Unfortunately, that's how football works. It's not like any other business. And I'm getting to the point where I think I'm not going to comment on transfer speculation. I'm not going to comment on Peter Silverson ever again. I think I've said it enough till, well, I'm red in the face, but blue in the face, and people are probably sick of hearing me coming out with suggestions that he should be coming out with. And if he can't be asked to do his job, and I'm trying to do it for him, and he's not even coming out with the okay, we'll do that, or why don't we even discuss that? I'm not buying it that we're hiding behind, we're waiting for Man City, because that'll get appealed anyway. I've just given you IKEA for £10 million a year, and don't think they can't afford it, and don't think that idea wouldn't appeal to them. So there's all these things that can be done. If we had just what was it we call it, Mitch? Low-hanging fruit. Had we had this, we'd had an extra 20 to 30 million pound a season. We could have went and then paid the money for Pedro, which personally I'm glad that we didn't get. But we could have bought Ekitike before even Liverpool had an idea we were bidding for him, if we had the extra money. We could have went and got Gay. We are an attractive proposition. We have to understand that, but we're not as attractive as Liverpool are at the moment, and that rankles us. But we have to understand it, not accept it, fight against it. And as long as Eddie Howe is in charge, we'll continue to fight against the order, and he'll always want to improve. And that's why he's not just going out and buying players just to fill squads. But it may come out at the end of the window, and that's going to be such a shame, because that's when I go back to the original part of what I said. That's PSR doing its job. It's stifled our growth, and aren't they all happy?
Okay, we are halfway through the show. We'll have an ad break now. I'm seeing Nicholas in the chat asking if he can jump on and tell us a little story about Celtic. I've sent you the link on Twitter, mate. You're more than welcome to jump on if you want to. We'll have a quick ad break. We will be back after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2-crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach. All excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatters.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatters.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. Okay, and don't forget we have the screening of the League Cup final. It is a free event at the Tyneside Irish Centre this coming Friday at 7 p.m. Get yourself along to that, and we will be doing a couple of raffles to raise a few quid for the Dementia Charity Age UK in North Tyneside. And if you put yourself in for the tickets, you get a chance on the night of winning one of those Carabao Cup replica medals. So big thanks to everyone so far. I think we've got about 60 people coming along. Start at 7 o'clock. The cup final will be screened from 7:30 through till about 9:45. And it'll be a great night. Good chance to catch up with a few people from NUFC Matters before the season starts proper. And don't forget as well, the fanzine is on order now for next season. 4 issues for 25 quid. That includes postage. All proceeds going to Age UK North Tyneside as well. Okay, Nick, who's a long-time viewer, good pal of mine, is in the green room. He's come on to see Mitch, I think, in his headband. Nick, how are you, mate?
All right, Nick.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
We can't hear you, Nick. We can see you. Great picture, but we can't hear you. You might have to take your earpiece out. Yeah, we can't hear you. Oh, hold on. Can we hear you now?
Yeah.
Right.
That's it. We can hear you now, Nick. Go on, then. You wanted to give us a Celtic story from yesterday.
Well, it was. Right. Just with this Celtic story, right? I've got a belt, Harry. Well, Wallace, she studied at the veterinary school up in Celtic. Got a degree up there. And obviously she had loads of friends up there now. So when we got together, we went up to see our pals and that. And we met this lad, Stefan, one of our best friends. But he's staunch Celtic. And I mean, I know we are crackers, right? But them lot are even worse, right? They're off the scale. And we went to this bar, what a pint. And Stefan says to me, he goes, he says, you seen who's over there? He goes, that's Neil Lennon. He says, this is where he has a pint, he drinks, and nobody bothers him. Sits with his little entourage at the table. And Wallace turned around and went, she went, I castrated his cat. And I went, what? Right? And then she went, did I not put them in a jar and give them to you, Stefan? And he went, aye. He says, they're on my mantelpiece. I went, fuck this, sweet. I went, hang on. I says, I'm going for a pittle, right? And I walked straight up to him, and all he's like, entourage. But I got, who's it? I went, are you Neil Lennon? And he went, aye. I says, you see that lass over there? I says, she cut your knackers off. And he was killing himself laughing. And I went, and see the bloke next to him? I says, they're on his mantelpiece. He was shaking me hard and having a good laugh. Hey, what a top fella. But that's Glasgow. Glasgow is just like Newcastle. It's full of humour, good lads. And I know they've had their troubles and the bits and bobs, but that's how I found Glasgow. So anyway, I'm going to sign off, lads, right? Have a great show. Thanks very much. Send us any more porn screaming, right? That'll just sort me right.
Sorry.
Take care, mate. Great stuff. Thank you. Very nice of Nick to pop on. He's a good lad. He's been a pal of mine for many, many years from the Felon, and he's a big fan of the show. Great to have him on. Great story, by the way. And and Mitch, your headwear is certainly creating a storm in the chat. Marcus says, do you think we'll start seeing headbands in the stands again? He says, you cannot be serious, Mitch. You cannot be serious, says Alan. And Jody Dan says, gutted. Would have went, but I'm seeing Alice Cooper, Judas Priest on Friday, and he says, now I've got to see Mitch playing tennis. And Mitch is playing tennis later. So, yeah, it's gone down well. Anthony Gordon's headband, absolutely mental. Really, really mental. That new fashion that he's created. But, yeah, you'll probably see a lot of people who take it on. Alan St. Mitch, says Chippers. I like it. Okay. I did promise you I would just go through a text that Steve Hasty sent, who he's sitting watching. He's absolutely sweating buckets now, wondering what on earth I'm going to come up with. It was very simple because it touches really on a little bit that you mentioned earlier about getting football people in the boardroom. And just as a reminder of who is in the boardroom, Jamie Rubin, of course. We have also on top of Jamie Rubin, we've got Simon Kappa, of course, he was the finance director at Leicester. We've obviously had Darren Eales. We know that Darren was stepping down in June, so that we've probably gone 3 months without 3 weeks without the CEO. No announcement as to what is happening there, so we don't know what is going on there. Silverstone, of course, who came in and was in charge of the commercial side of things. He has brought sponsorship in. We've given credit for bringing in the mini sponsorships. Some of the stuff that he's brought in is not really being publicised. He's brought in quite a few small sponsors, but the main sponsors, which we're all expecting, training ground, training kit, stadium sponsor stuff. None of that's come in. There has to be a reason for that. We've also got Roger Thornton. He's the gatekeeper for the Rubens. We've got Asma Mohammed Razik, who's a Saudi investment professional. We've got Jacob Solis, of course, who's the PIF head of Europe Direct Investments in the International Investments Division. The problem with all of this and the names that I'm reading out here, first of all, with the exception of Jamie Rubin, Silverstone, and Darren Eales, I've not got a clue who any of these people are. I wouldn't know them if the passed us in the street. But the other point, and Stu will come to you first on this, is none of these people really have the experience at all in football. They're all businessmen. They've all got, successful careers behind them in various different areas. But with the exception of Silverstone, none of them have really worked in football clubs. Is that a bit of an issue for us?
No, not if it's planned out properly, which it clearly isn't. And although I had my little speech before about blaming PSR and everything else like that, where what we could do is have the behind the scenes fitted out correctly, and it's not. And this is where people start digging deeper. When things aren't going as you want them to do, you start digging deeper and looking for reasons to point the fingers. I'll use fingers, not guns now, just in case we get banned for advertising. That's the one thing. But if you call them signings or the acquisitions or the jobs that have been given to these people are the best in their field. And what really goes on behind the scenes, I can't remember a time. Maybe there was 2 years under Sir John Hall and the first 2 years under this ownership with Amanda, where we've been completely satisfied with what's going on off field. But it does need addressing. And I know I'm probably being hypocritical of myself here by saying that PSR is not allowing us to do that. But imagine if it was. Do we have the people in situ to actually make these decisions and drive the club forward? Imagine there was a vote, which is not going to happen, but if there was a vote where the gloves are off, spend what you want, then we then go on, and who's going to do the signings? Who's going to entice the player? Who's going to ensure that the sponsorships are running parallel? Because people have to sometimes be reminded that the PIF is a business and they want this run as a business that will create profit for them. So they don't want us to slip down the league. And I've just got a little snippet here. I've just went on my other phone and found some of the conversation I had with Stephen Borson, who's, if people aren't on Twitter, or if they are on Twitter, he goes under SLBSN, Blue Tick. I don't know if he was given that or paid for it, but his backstory was he was part of the Man City legal team. Is that right, Mitch? Got fired, but then has become the voice of PSR or Financial Fair Play, or one of the voices, and he gets a lot of airtime on TalkSport. Now, he was championing the fact that Isak wants to leave and the fact that Liverpool wouldn't have bid if they were encouraged to. First of all, they never bid. Second of all, if Isak said he wanted to leave, he'd had a transfer request in. But anyway, the conversation went like this. And I don't know if he was under the influence. Some of us can speak normally under the influence, two of them on this panel. But the way he was coming across as Newcastle fan, this is what he said. Newcastle fans seem to want to ignore the fact that Liverpool are still pursuing this very, very aggressively. They have spoken to the player and know, in capital letters, know, K-N-O-W, he is keen, obviously. So if they've spoken to the player, this then opens up another kind of worms, which is what Forest have just pulled Tottenham for, and it looks like Tottenham will lose out. So someone then commented to him, and then he replied, "Never said that at all, and only a moron thinks Liverpool would bid a record British signing without knowing the player is keen. Indeed, you follow me, don't like it, don't follow." He said that to somebody else. I thought that was a bit petty. But the fact he said, knowing the player is keen, and the bid, they didn't bid. Because if they had, trust me, everyone would know about it. They might have inquired, they might have suggested to be interested. So I replied very maturely, "Hi, Stephen. Interested, yes. Obviously, and rightly so. Like 99% of the clubs would be. Bid, however, it doesn't appear so. A lot of gamesmanship going on, I believe." And he replied, "This is all semantics." So he didn't want to have a conversation. Liverpool are very interested, obviously. The player is keen, obviously, and there's probably a deal if Liverpool pay £150 million. Not really gamemanship because it's real. Now, he's saying that with as much confidence, like he knows that Liverpool have spoken to the player or spoken to the agents. So I replied, "Agent doing his job, rightly or wrongly. If it happens, this could be the tipping point for PIF to finally roll their sleeves up and challenge rulings that were set out to impede them. That would literally be a game changer." And he replied, wishful thinking. And I thought, I'm getting nowhere with this. So my reply to his wishful thinking was, that's what football used to be all about. Oh, for those days again. So I took from that it's very much in the media, and it shows that we are the outcast. But the team that he supports, the team that he endorses, the team that he protects, Manchester City, they were below us in the pecking order not so long ago. And our time will come, and they're desperately trying to stop us. Now, I don't want to go down the paranoia and road of they've all colluded and we wouldn't buy anyone. If Newcastle wanted to buy someone, we'll all take turns buying them, etc., etc. But as I touched on earlier, Steve, other clubs are a bigger draw than us. We have to accept that. We went for Elanga, and if West Ham went for Elanga, and let's say Brighton went for Elanga, we would expect to get him. Right?
Yeah.
We're a bigger club. So why shouldn't other teams who are bigger than us currently expect to get those players ahead of us? But when it comes to our players, then that's not allowed. And if I read between the lines, that's the point he's trying to get across, or I believe he was trying to get across. The point I'm making is we are in a position where we have been stifled, but we're not in a position to attack. If let's say the guard drops, are we in a position off the field to attack properly? And I think using the two words I'm going to continue using this evening is overwhelming frustration from everyone involved with Newcastle United, and that's where we are currently. We're really, really frustrated because we want it so much, and that's a passion. And there's nothing wrong with being passionate. Hey, what's good on here? Hey, you'll see a Christmas tree there in about 40 days' time.
I know, that's why I did it. It's just you that you deserve to be full screen, so there you go. I
don't know why she wants to say that, but fair play to her. So that's where we'll be. We have to not accept, we have to keep fighting against where we are in the pecking order and strive to get better. But sometimes we don't get better. And sometimes if success was a straight line, wouldn't it be boring? It sometimes has to stop, sometimes has to go backwards, sometimes it has to go sideways. But without trotting out the old age, where were we 4 years ago to where we are now? But actually, look where we were 4 years ago to where we are now. And if we can have the same success over the next 4 years, I think I'll take that. This is frustrating because we are on the precipice of breaking into that. It's not a glass ceiling at the moment. It seems to be a concrete ceiling. So we'll just have to find a different way of getting to the next level. And I believe that's all that's going on. I also believe that Eddie Howe has the ear of Yasser Al-Rumayyan, and I believe that changes will happen very quickly. And maybe I'm an internal optimist and I want the best, but those who want the worst or get comfort and things aren't happening well, then bad things will always happen to you. Keep looking on the positive side, keep pushing for things to be happening, because if you don't make them happen, they're not going to happen. And if we just accept second best, we'll always be second best. So we as fans can be passionate, we can show our fight, and it's been trotted out many times. We've done our bit as fans. We've filled the stadiums. We've emptied credit cards on the Adidas stuff. We're doing as much as we can. And because it's not getting reciprocated off the field, that's causing more frustration than anything else. Not that we've missed out on that player or that player, because players will come and go. And what's to stop with going and whacking down 50 million for a Gay if they only want 40? Blow them out the water so they don't even talk to Liverpool anymore. And then he either sits on a contract, then we know we're not getting him. There's so much that can be done, but who's in position to actually make these decisions and actually do it? Because now Eddie Howe's job is to get that squad up to match fitness. Yes, they showed that more than anything else. He's to get them up to match fitness for the Aston Villa game. And he can't be doing 2 or 3 jobs. You can't spin that many plates. So that's where the club let us down as fans. But in life, sometimes it happens. We not accept it, challenge it, push and push and push and strive to get better, because we are getting better. We have got a lot better quickly. And maybe it's just going to be a bit of a more slow progress now. But come hell or high water, we need more players in, quality players in addition for that squad, because that squad cannot handle what's coming in the next season without these players coming in. So then now they have to start thinking outside the box. Whether it's a guy from Brighton, which brings in the extra sponsors, which allows us to go and overbid for a player, because that's the fair market value that we try to run down, because of the way we have been hampered by PSR is by trying to do everything right, by trying to do everything morally right. We're going to be a victim of our own trying to perceive justices, and that's where I think where the fan base is at the moment. It's easy to say stuff it, go and spend 20 million extra or 10 million extra on that player, but you have to look at the bigger picture and knock-on effect. But I think we're going to have to bite the bullet and then open the doors and say, here we go. But for the last time, get more sponsorship in, and that allows us to spend more money.
Okay. Just going to say thank you to everybody watching tonight. Those of you watching on Twitter, of which there are 1,200, please search NUFC Matters, and it's on YouTube, and simply hit the subscribe button. It's there. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. In total, 1,940 of you watching tonight. Thank you very much. We never take it for granted, and always appreciate the views. Mitch, just that list really that I read out that Steve Hasty kindly sent us, and it gives us that kind of feeling, that what you said earlier was correct. That there aren't many football people involved. I mean, you could say Darren Eales was a football man. But prior, he did come from a football club. But my understanding was that a lot of the work done at his previous club had been done before he went in, and he almost like sailed in and just took the plaudits.
I don't think that's fair about Atlanta. I think at Atlanta he built it from next and out. So there is a little pedigree there. I know somebody made the point that there are football people in the club, but we don't know who's doing what. There doesn't seem to be. We don't know what Darren Neal's day-to-day role is. We don't know how much other things are taking Sylvester away from his role. We've got a financial director in from Leicester City. Well, that went well, which is, but that's probably really scathing and sarky thing to say. But there's nobody with a hand on the tiller for me. There's nobody giving direction and being a leader. And I've seen it firsthand in my own profession about what happens when people come in and shape the profession who are not necessarily directly from the profession. It's one of my frustrations which led to some of the decisions I made to come to the Middle East. When you've got a general dental council in the UK, in England, who still are having conversations about whether it's professional or not to have visible tattoos. It's 2025. It's not it's not the Victorian era. These things are that's just irrelevant to modern life. And so when you have people shaping a narrative and shaping the direction of the club, would need what I would say a strong leader and somebody with high football pedigree. I've seen another couple of suggestions about ideas about can one of the clubs sponsor, one of the PIF companies sponsor Isaac separately. That's actually part of what Man City are being charged with the 115 was payments from Etisalat, the national telecoms company here in the UAE, to Roberto Mancini, for example. So that's a difficult one to get around.
What's the sponsorship? That was direct payment.
Direct payment,
supposedly.
it was.
Supposedly.
Yeah. It would, it's genuinely, and I think Derek's point there is right. I think the people who are getting stressed about are PIF interested and are PIF going to walk away. Their chance to walk away was when the first lot of bids were knocked back, and if they were going to walk away, they would have walked away then. That's genuinely my feeling. They would have disappeared over the horizon, never to come back. And they didn't. And I think if they put up with that, there's a lot more things they're going to be prepared to put up with. But again, that lack of somebody hand on the tiller and adding and really supporting Eddie Howe in different ways, that leads to some of that angst and frustration amongst the fan base. And I do understand it. Really do understand it. But it is something which, you can tell, I think everybody watching can tell that we bounced a lot around, not just this weekend, but probably for the last couple of weeks between and there are still sort of questions which we don't have answers to. And in some respects, maybe some of these things we shouldn't. But it's very easy, and I see why people jump to some sort of, we missed out on X targets. We might have missed out on 20 targets. Which won't know.
Targets are high value targets, Mitch, and at least we're aiming for the stars, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. But it's certainly adding to the levels of frustration within the fan base. And I think in leading to decisions like, for example, why we've got 10 million goalkeepers, there are certain things there which just baffle me totally. And so, yes, I understand where that comes from.
Yeah, I mean, the Man City Trafford thing is a surprise in a lot of ways because, you know, you wouldn't have expected Man City to go back for him, but c'est la vie, as we say, that is it. You move on. We've just got to accept it. It will be another meltdown tonight, though. It gives those people who love creating turmoil on X an opportunity to
Steve, we didn't lose him. We didn't lose him because he wasn't our player. But then even if we had signed him, the same people moaning now would be moaning saying, another goalkeeper, oh, you're going to ignore it.
You can't win. And yeah, that's what we say on here, ignore it. But that one will again be frustrating because more people thought that there was, you know, everybody thought that was more or less a done deal and it was just a case of formalising it and sorting it. But the longer it dragged on, obviously you were thinking, what's going on? And then Man City arrive and say, oh, we want my keeper back. It's just, it just fuels the narrative that the top six are working against Newcastle as well. That's another thing that people tend to...
Or maybe Burnley were asking for more money than where we were willing to pay. Too much more money. And because Man City get a 20% buyback clause discount, it becomes more attractive to them. But if we put a bit of positivity into this, yesterday, strange enough, I was at work, but I finished in time for the friendly fixture yesterday. I was speaking with a doctor from Riyadh, a very high, well, I'd say a very high doctor. It doesn't mean he was under the influence of narcotics, but he's high in his field. And when I was speaking to him, he says, "Where are you from?" So when I told him, he went, yes, Yasser, he loves you. And I says, Yasser. And he says, and I thought it was someone who had referred him to me. And he, no, Mr. His Excellency, Yasser Al-Rumayyan. He says, he really supports your team. He really loves your team. And I says, you know, and when I started talking about things I've mentioned on the show previously, how he's caught the bug. He's speaking to, I mean, I don't want to give the guy's name, but he speaks not every day, clearly not, but he's someone that's, how do I say this? I think we can put the dots together. He's in contact with him on a irregular basis, and he's telling him about his affection for Newcastle United. So for those who are doubting whether the PAF want Newcastle United to do well, they want every investment they've got to do well. And that's why they invested in us. There's more money to come, but at the same time, the rules on, they could go and say there's 100 million for Tiki, there's 200 million for Pedro, whatever you want, and get the players that Eddie Howe wanted. They want to back them, but the players have to want to come here as well. And using the Evan example I gave before, when they signed James Rodriguez, give him all that money. Did he really put a shift in for them? And we're building, we're trying to build for the future. And I think the only grievance I've got with Eddie Howe is I think he needs to be more selfish. He's got to look at the here and now and say, right, I want these players in now. I want players, if they're over 25 and they're good enough, I want them in that squad. And although I got pelters personally during the ads for mentioning Ireland, I just think that using someone like that as an example, take him out of where he is and put him into what is quite clearly a close-knitted group of players and make him feel loved again. There was obviously a player there that they spent 70-odd million on. So that was just my way of thinking. I'm not trying to start let's sign him, but I'm using him as an example because there really is a dearth of centre forwards, and it's clear that we need someone to support Isak, not to replace him, not to challenge him, but who's good enough to hold the line for 3 or 4 games if Isak has a little twinge or he has an injury, because that's going to happen if he's going to play 60 games next season. You know, so we all know that there's places that need to be filled. And am I going to say trust the process? Am I going to say trust anyhow? I think we have to at this stage. And if come September the 2nd, we haven't got who everyone wanted to sign, there'll be no one more disappointed than Eddie Howe. But from there, that's when we become more pivotal as supporters. And that's when we have that active defiance. That's when we have that togetherness. And yes, the squad on numbers is weaker. But when Mitch touched on before, we go to next season with 21 Champions League players. Technically, we don't. You've got to have 4 homegrown. So Miley's at least 1. So that makes it 22. Then you've got the goalkeeper. He's 23. Is he ever going to get a game for us? How many teams in the Champions League really play 21 or 22 players on a rotation? They don't. That's just the way I see it. So that's, for me, is the least of my worries. And I think I'm with the way that Eddie Howe's trying to buy players, and it's quality over quantity. And we might have to take a couple of free transfers and pay them bigger salaries. But we did that with Kelly, didn't we? Paid him a bigger salary, got him on a free, and made money out of it. And we're just going to have to pad the squad out. Whether it be someone, you've mentioned, there was a lad at Everton that's left that wanted a big salary midfielder. His name slips my mind at the moment. But he's a good player. You could get him in there and he could rotate. So because you can't expect the Brunos and the Tonalis to play every single game. The amount of minutes and meters that they cover, you can't expect them to do that and perform top. So we need cover in there. And if it's a short term, get them in a 3-year contract. If things change for the better on the PSR front and the 115 that everyone's trying to cling or hang the hat on, then we can sell them. Sell them for 10 million, 15 million, because they'll be worth it and they've done a job for us. And that's where we need to start looking at now. Get 1 or 2 more in where we're paying big, big money for them, whether that be a Gay or whoever. On Eddie Howe's list, okay, we'll pay over the odds for them, but we have to then supplement it with people who we're not paying for and give them extra wages. But I know I've said it relentlessly on here over the last few months. You get a £5 million sponsorship, that's 100 grand a week. Get a $5 million sponsorship and give it to Isak. Get him sign the contract. And that would, I think it's the fear of losing Isak that's caused a lot of a stir this week. Because as much as the Liverpool fans have gloated and bragged and been really obnoxious, the fear inside of us all thinking, you know what, you possibly could. And that's what stoked us up to be the meltdown that happened after yesterday's friendly defeat, because that's what it was. It was a friendly defeat. Let's get a few things that we can control nipped in the bud and start moving forward as quickly as we possibly can, because time is ticking now.
It is. I just want to read out John Askew's email. Don't forget as well, if you want to send us an email, send us your comments, feel free. nufcmatters1882@gmail.com. We'll get back to you and maybe feature your letter on the show. But he said, I enjoyed Mitch's article in the fanzine, even if it was slightly alarming. We've got the right owners, the right manager, coaching team and players for this stage of the project. There's been significant success to date, which is largely down to Eddie, of course. But we are now wondering whether it's in spite of those in power within the corridors of St James's Park. Some of us, for example, had misgivings about Mitchell's pretty much from day one, and his tactless early public comments were certainly not something you would expect from someone in such an important position. He might have believed what he said, many fans didn't, but should he have really been quite so cavalier regarding divulging his views to the media? Probably not, if we're honest. And an awkward conclusion might be drawn from the whole Mitchell saga. It would appear his appointment was made without any reference to Eddie. Surely lessons need to be learned from the whole business, and hopefully Eddie will be included in the whole process of key recruitments to vital positions, which will influence the future football side of our club. If he's not what it exactly would be for the recipe, certainly not success, in my opinion. The situation isn't helped by the circumstances surrounding Darren Eales. We wish him all well with one of the most important battles he'll ever face, but it's absolutely vital that any successor has the football and the fans as a main priority at the very least, and that he is clearly at one with Eddie. Our manager deserves nothing less. Mitchell's article gave much food for thought, and unfortunately too much of it was distasteful and worrying. Concerns about aspects like ticketing are compounded by questions about the fans' advisory board, whose role is unclear, and what exactly they are providing advice on. I'm sure they mean well, but a little clarification from the club wouldn't go amiss. And then there's Stu's problems with sponsorship. With one of our future rivals having recently negotiated a £1 billion kit contract, it's clear we need to get it right in this area. Perhaps the club are waiting for the outcome of the City case, but that doesn't really explain why we aren't sponsored for the current ground or training facilities and kit. I'm not sure. And if the club is lukewarm on global Toon fan clubs, then they really need to raise the temperature. As Mitch rightly points out, if we really do have aspirations to be number one, we've got to get it right off the pitch as well as on it. It should be Newcastle United in every sense. That way, they'll have a chance, and we'll have a chance of maximising our huge potential in the future, regardless of FFP, PSR, SCR, etc. So just to be clear, to get where our owners want us to be, we all need to be singing from the same hymn sheet, and hopefully those in vital positions behind the scenes can produce the same standards as those responsible for the football that we've enjoyed for something approaching 4 years now. I'm far from negative. In fact, with our current manager and owners, the sky is blue. But the characters occupying those corridors mentioned above must get it right. How are the lads? That's from John Askew. Lovely letter in via emails. Thank you for that. And this one from Gary. He says, I've recently unfollowed most NUFC content creators due to clickbait headlines, negative content, even though they swear they are just being realistic, mourning and bringing rehashed news from MSM journalists that in the main are made up. NUFC matters are a breath of fresh air, no speculation, honest debate, fun, calm and knowledgeable panel members. We all have opinions on our club and voice those in the chat without being called a tosser, which happened when I questioned one host's opinion on another channel. Thanks, NUFC Matters, for being the calm amongst the storm. Gary, thank you for joining our Facebook group and also watching our podcast. It is much appreciated. So we've only got a couple of minutes left, lads. I think we've covered a lot of ground tonight. And like I say, we always come on here and just try to keep it level-headed and not get too carried away amongst all the madness on social media. What are you hoping from this week, Mitch? What do you hope? Monday, tomorrow is the start of a new week. What would you like to see happen?
I would like to see us this time next week to be talking about signings, plural.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think for general morale in the fan base, that would be the best thing they could do to get people talking positively again, to show some intent. And showing that intent may be the difference between how the vibe within the camp is perceived and not. So that's what I would say in a nutshell.
Okay. Stu, same question.
Well, first of all, thanks to John and Gary for taking the time to read those emails, and they had very, very valid points. And just to echo what Mitch has said, a couple of signings, but not just for the fans, but for the players, to give them the confidence that the club genuinely want to move forward. And not that want to, I think everyone believes they want to move forward, but they're capable of moving forward. And as I mentioned there, we're flying out to, not we, but the team are flying out to the Far East later this week. Wouldn't it be nice to have at least one new bum sitting on a seat that's going to excite the players, thinking, wow, he's a good one. And for us to think, yeah, we've got another good one. Because if not, then the burden of pressure comes too much for Elanga, and we're going to be expecting a Messi on the wing, cutting inside, beating 5 players and scoring. And what we need is the weight of expectation to be spread amongst new signings, not just one signing. And I don't want to contradict what I said. We are shopping in a small market, but I do believe we're going to have to bite the bullet and overpay. I know that's something the club never wanted to do, and Amanda was very, very opinionated on that by saying, because you do it once, it's expected again. But sometimes your hand's forced, and if we supplement it with a couple of free signings, as I touched on before, then we're not going to get an ideal window. We're not in a position to get an ideal window, but we're going to have to make do or make best of a hand that we've been dealt with and get as much as we can out of it. But whatever happens has got to be at least before the window closes, a minimum of another 3 players coming in to give us a chance of even standing still to where we finished last season. And I think everyone's aware of that. We've had our say, everyone else is having their say, everyone's entitled to their opinion, whether we agree with it or disagree with it. It's now back over to those who can bring sponsorship in to alleviate the stress and pressure of spending extra money, or even allow it to encourage the spending extra money. But most importantly, of those who are trying to persuade the players to join what we are trying to achieve. And what Eddie said yesterday, you need players who want to come for the right reasons. Not people who just want to come because we offered more money than somewhere else. And we're trying to compete with those above us. It is going to be difficult, but we knew that going into the season, and we have to get into a position now where I understand Bar Young, but sometimes we're going to have to look, I think, for this window, at least get 2 older players, more experienced players who wouldn't expect to play 40, 50, 60 games and could quite happily play a part in 20 or 30 of them, just to allow those who can excel for us, because we have 2 world-class players in our team and we've got some very good players, Isak and Tonali being the world-class ones, and we can't put too much on them. We need to be able to support them and allow them to perform at the best of their ability, rather than expect them to be churned out every single week and give us 9 out of 10 performances, because it's not going to happen. So I think everyone's aware of where we need to be, and I think for me tonight's been very good. It's allowed me to get a few things off my chest. It's allowed me to listen to other people. It's allowed me to read what's been said by other people who are viewing, and I think if we look at it calmly and realise we can huff and puff and blow the house down, whatever we said isn't really going to make that much difference. And if it wasn't Eddie Howe in charge, I would be more worried. But that guy's driven, he's driven by success. He's desperate for success, and he'll do as much as he can to help us achieve that. But I think now is the time where, tell us who you want, we'll go and get them. We'll spend extra. We'll do it. You concentrate on getting that team ready for the Aston Villa game. And I think that's the best way we can be from now going forward.
Yeah, big shout out to our Everton fan in the chat tonight, Dixie Singh. He says, Everton fan, yeah, Rodriguez was class. It was a strange example. We did waste immense money on other crap that got us in huge problems. Right to say. He says, don't just throw money because you've got it. So he's just agreeing with you. Just thought that was a strange example.
My mate John out here was an Everton fan. He told me months ago, we spent £500 million and got worse.
Yeah,
it happens. It happens. David Knight, thanks for the donation to the Malverno Fund. He says it just seems like we don't have plan Bs on players. Let's wait and see what happens. And somebody did ask us, it's Steve, I think, said, just one question before you go. When do we start panicking? We'll start panicking on the 1st of September. If it's the same situation then, mate, that's when we'll start panicking. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to the moderators. Big thank you to Stu and Mitch, of course. Back tomorrow with the Fans Forum, live at 6 o'clock. Until then, have a good night, whatever you're doing. Take care, lads.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.